is going on, everyone? Welcome to... Did you shave?
Yeah. Is that a problem?
Yes, absolutely. It's a problem. You look ridiculous without it.
That's rude.
Oh. Why
Oh, wow. That was a.
Well, now that we settled that, welcome everybody to 100x Engineering, the show where Drew and I are able to exchange fruit or slaps or punches across the United States from Ohio to Salt Lake. So the show where you learn to be not a 1x, 10x, 11x, all the numbers in between 11 and 99, but a 100x engineer. Really excited for our topic today. But before we get into that, Drew, how would you rate the jankiness of last week's game? Slenderman?
Last week's game was pretty. I wouldn't even call it janky. I think it was awesome.
I think that was one of the best we played, actually. It was like you're able to walk, and it's kind of slow-paced, and you're able to jump scare people, and I think it worked pretty well, actually. I kind of want to make something like that in my personal time over Thanksgiving, so fingers crossed as well.
Make us a game. Make us a game we can play on here.
That is my goal. I will do that one day, and then everyone has to say they like it. Otherwise, I'll be sad and I won't do the show anymore. Just kidding. I'm not that toxic of a co-host, and we already found out I can be very easily replaced by Carson a couple episodes ago. Thank you, Carson, if you're watching.
Anyone can.
Killed it. Yes. But not everybody can slap through the camera like you and I can. So
True.
Yeah.
Job security.
Job security. You hear that, Phil? Just kidding. Phil's not my boss anymore. I love referencing that. I don't think that'll ever get old to me. Topic for today. Let's go through this really quick. Help! I have a great business idea. I just need a developer. Drew, have you ever been that developer for someone?
I have been that developer. I seldom am that developer anymore. Those requests tend not to pan out.
Yeah, I think there's
requester things.
Two different areas that like this can come from, where it's like it's either like an opportunity or like I do not want to touch this thing with a 10-foot pole. Like stay away. And like we can offer you equity instead of paying you. We're chatting with somebody pretty sweet today. A personal friend of mine, former coworker. Drew, you normally do the intro. Sorry, I'm going off script here.
That's all right.
And has co-founded a company, and they're rolling with it. It's cool. It's an exciting stage startup. I'll let him describe it himself. Let's give a round of applause and a warm welcome to Rob Mayfield. I should have asked Tyler to bring him on because I can't clap and bring him on. Rob Mayfield. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
There we go.
Oh, thanks for having me, Carter and Drew. Nice to meet you. Well, yeah.
Tell us a little about yourself, aside from the fact that you co-founded an awesome company, which we will get to that as well. But who is Rob?
Yeah, so I'm a Utah native, and that's kind of where I've cut my teeth in the tech world. Kind of the Utah tech scene has been my career. So in structure, pre-IPO, and then podium release stage. And anyway, every time I made a move, I wanted to be somewhere smaller, somewhere that I could get in earlier. And that's kind of what brought me to my current situation. I'm co-founding a company called Blackthorn Software.
Employee number one, right? Or tied for one.
Yeah, loosely, yep.
Employee number early.
Early stage. Nice.
Yep.
Did you say it was called Blackthorn?
Yep.
Very cool. Related to the Blackthorn Dallin Arcolin in The Way of Kings?
Yep. We named him after. No, it's actually a coincidence. But yeah, it's a good coincidence because a lot of people happen to be fans of Brandon Sanderson, especially locally.
Especially in the tech world.
Yep. And so, having a good character named after you. Luckily, he's not like the ultimate villain or something. So
spoilers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, yep.
Just kidding. I don't think those are spoilers.
Look him up on Google if you don't know.
Yeah, if he looks like an evil dude, you'll know that he doesn't actually turn out to be an evil dude. We'll see. Tell us a little bit about what Blackthorn Software does aside from not being named after fantasy characters.
Yeah, so Blackthorn Software is at its core, a project management tool specific to construction industry. So there's a lot of like kind of single function apps out there that do project management or time and team management or asset management. We're kind of trying to cover those gaps or close those gaps and have a consolidated platform that a construction team can manage everything from. So at its core, project management, but with elements of asset and team and time.
Very cool. Last question before we get into the game, and I'll let Drew intro that. How big is the engineering team currently?
So right now we are at 4 contributing members. So 3.5 full-time. So that half's a contractor.
I seriously meant the other way. It's like we have 10 people, but only like 4 of them actually do work.
No. Yeah, that would be a different story. But yeah, we've got 4 engineers on the team. So we're really lucky to have that. I feel like a lot of early stage startups are begging for scraps. So we feel like we've got a great team right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure we'll dive into some more details there in a bit, but I will intro the game since Carter stole my guest introduction. The game today is called Ducklings.io, which is very simple. You just have to collect ducks. You are a duck and you go around finding chicks and you bring the chicks back to your nest. I think we're going to be on the same team. So anyone who'd like to join, I think we're posting the link in the chat. There it is. Come collect some ducks with us.
I want to make it. No, then come back. Follow me. Oh, hello, fellow duck. I'm Stick Hat Duck. Oh, you're also Stick Hat Duck. I don't know who that is. But yeah, it's actually I played this game for like 30 minutes. The title, it's like come and relax. Like if you're playing it, like make sure your volume's up. I guess your volume's up anyways because you're probably listening to the stream. But yeah, the music on it's kind of soothing. Don't get hit by the boats or the kayakers. Oh no, somebody lost all their ducklings. How are you going so fast? That was cheap. All right, I'm gonna steal this dude's ducks. You can also steal ducks from people, and that's kind of this peaceful game.
Y'all have the stick hats? Is this you guys? I'm taking your ducks.
Yeah, I got stick hats. Got the ducks here. I kind of want to get the longest train of ducklings.
Are ducks on our team all the same color or just same hat?
They don't necessarily have to be same color or same hat. So if they're going back to like the little nest, that's like the same nest you have, that is how you know they're on the same team.
Okay.
I'm just going to take my massive duck train over here. But this is not 100x ducking. Oh, this dude has a garage. That's and a fence. Okay. We need a level up. Maybe I'm going to go steal these ducks. Okay. This is not 100x waterfowling. Yeah, we'll go with that one. Swap this guy's duck train for my duck train. Okay. This is 100x engineering, and where we get hit by boats and that dude just stole my ducks. Let's jump into the conversation here, though, while I'm getting wrecked at this peaceful game that's not competitive. Let's talk about the super early stage of building out an engineering team, because that's something that's like near and dear to me. I was a part of that with JupiterOne. You guys are in that stage right now with Blackthorn. You said you've got 3.5-ish, 4-ish engineers, a handful of engineers. What was it like trying to find like engineer number 1 for that team? Like, how did you convince somebody to come and be like, hey, do you want to like work on this product that doesn't exist yet?
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of, I'll just say we kind of had a less traditional path to that first engineer. My co-founder was working with dev shops to try and get a tool made that could do what he wanted it to do. And so that was kind of in development for a number of years, where it was kind of just a, you know how dev shop jobs work. And so it wasn't always built for the long term in mind, or even just the specifications were maybe built exactly as they were requested. And there wasn't really a dynamic of collaboration or iteration that's for the best, right? For the best outcome in terms of a product, how you want to build a product. So anyway, all that to say, our first engineer was a contractor that was kind of a carryover from those dev shop days, and he's been great. So a shout out to Mike Bonner if you're listening. But anyway, like we're so thrilled to have him. He's been a mainstay here and a big piece of what we've built already. So he was kind of engineering hire number 1, and we've largely kind of leaned on him to anchor the team. But obviously he's got some other stuff going on to be a contractor. So we have kind of built around that and had to find other permanent hires beyond him. And so, yeah, convincing people to come join the team truly is a high wire act in a lot of ways. Like as you mentioned, it's risky for engineers to want to come join a team or be that guy that's, hey, come help me bring this product to life. You don't always want to be the first person to the party or the first person on the dance floor. You want to see some traction. You want to see some health in a business before you join them. So that's been definitely a difficult thing, and why even a year later we are still a pretty tiny team. It is still an ongoing labor that we're doing, but we found some great people who do get excited and are passionate about that type of opportunity to be able to come and help us build something kind of from the ground up. So
how do you interview for that, like people at that early stage of a Drew, stop taking my ducks. How do you interview somebody for like that early stage of a company? Like, what is the interview process like? Do you do like whiteboarding challenges, or is it like more conversational, like, hey, are you willing to come and do this? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, right now our process is pretty much 3 stages. Like we kind of do like a pre-screening call, really just make sure like, okay, are they a real person that really wants this job? They're not just going to outsource it to overseas hires and things like that. Like, do they speak the same language, and is this even a good fit, like in terms of the challenge of coming to a startup? So that's kind of our first, I'd call it a screening call, but kind of just started out by making sure we're on the same page and want the same thing, because alignment's like key to this early of a stage. You want everyone to be aligned with what you're trying to do, because like it or not, like people have an outsized impact on your culture and how the team's going to go. So anyway, that's first stage. Then we typically do kind of a technical pairing session, just to make sure they're not just talking the talk, that they can actually do something, contribute. And then we typically try for a second pairing session with like kind of a second set of eyes, someone else on the team, just to make sure it wasn't kind of a fluke, and kind of get 2 differing opinions to really help us validate if it was accurate. So we yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it. By the end of 2 hour-long pairing sessions and 1 30-minute screen, we really hope to be able to know, is this someone who we could work with and really does want to come have an impact on not just the product but the company. And I think that's the big difference from going to kind of dev shop to building out a full-time team, is we're not just building a product anymore. We are also building a company. So that's kind of where we're at.
The concept of building a company, like building out like a team as opposed to just building a product, is something that like looks very different depending on the different stages of the company you're at. The different problems you run into are totally different with like 4 people as opposed to like 10, 20. We chatted a little bit in our prep call about like the difference between like, I think I drew the assumption that you had one of these already, but it sounds like you guys are still kind of looking for this. Correct me if I'm wrong. But a technical co-founder. Do you want to describe kind of what that looks like and how that differs from like early stage engineers?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of be perfectly clear there, like it's more about like I wouldn't say we have kind of that traditional like idyllic, here's the business co-founder, here's the technical co-founder, let's take this idea to market. Like it didn't start that clean way. And so I'd say the engineers we have, though they may not carry that title of technical co-founder, in a lot of ways, they're kind of sharing that between them. They are founding engineers, right? Like we have a whole team of them. So, well, that may mean we don't have kind of someone who's directly that CTO or CTO or early stage person. Like we definitely lean heavily on the engineers that are part of the team to help us make smart architecting and hiring decisions. And I think that's kind of the truth of where we're at. I mean, I think we're always open to adding some of that structure of finding some senior talent, of people who have been there and done that and kind of know the playbook of taking a product to market. But yeah, I think it's always an opportunistic hire. But at this point, we've kind of leaned on it as a a committee in a lot of ways, and for better or worse.
That's super interesting, and it seems like quite the challenge actually. But it sounds like y'all are handling it well. I'm interested in kind of like, so for those initial hires, like these first few engineers, obviously they're pretty trying to find the right word, like they're able to function more autonomously, in this situation than probably most. But you are likely guiding their endeavors. How does that look? Like, how do you structure things without getting too involved or spending a load of time managing these co-founders,
Yeah,
technical people?
there's definitely a huge element of trust there, kind of relying on them that they are, they have our best interest as a company at heart. I think me and my co-founder tend to wear a product manager hat in a lot of ways. However, I wouldn't say, I don't toot my own horn in the sense of I know there are plenty of deficiencies there. Like I'm not a product manager by trade, but kind of relying on the engineers to help us fill the gaps or deficiencies where we're kind of falling short on that product manager thing. We definitely rely on them to help us understand feasibility of things that we're requesting, and even just helping us kind of shape those ideas and take them from a set of like outcomes that we're trying to have to really define it as, how do you build this into a feature set? How do you even make this something you can build? So
Yeah, that makes sense. This is surprisingly distracting, collecting ducks.
So
I'm struggling here. I know I keep getting hit by boats.
I was like, I didn't know you could get a game over in this game. I'm glad I'm not the only one just getting wrecked by the speedboat. That dude's gonna feel like a terrible human. He's killed like 10 ducks.
But yeah, that's actually super interesting to me, because coming from, to me that sounds super interesting. I don't think to everyone, every engineer, that sounds like an exciting opportunity, but to someone who likes those kind of greenfield, you have a lot of say and control over what you create kind of opportunities. It sounds awesome, but it also sounds super daunting, because whatever you make is, like Carter was saying, it's kind of the foundation of this entire company.
Yeah, so the mistakes you make at this stage, engineers will be paying for years to come.
Right.
Well, and there's definitely been our fair share of that, where we've kind of taken a bet that we thought, hey, let's see if this pans out, and then we have to kind of backpedal a little bit and realize, okay, that seemed like a good option at the time, but now we're going to have to kind of consider that a sunk cost and go in a different direction. So there's been our fair share of that. But exactly what you're saying, we kind of are asking a lot of our engineers to, weigh in on some high consequence decisions in a formative stage of our product.
I think one of the best things to do in that, like from my take on that, is I think a lot of companies, especially like early stage, can get locked in like what's it called, barn dooring, bike shedding, where it's like we're trying to like just figure out what we should do, and then like you want to like have a certain degree of tact before you go and like make something, but especially like when you're trying to go fast and like get market share at the beginning and like get the product and like get to where you can close deals, like there's a lot of give and take of like compromising. Like a frequent compromise I had to go back and forth with the CEO here was like, do we take the time to write the tests for this or not? He's like, Carter, it doesn't matter if you write the tests for it if we don't have a company. Like if we don't close this deal, like we don't have money, and then it doesn't matter if you have it 100% covered, like there's no money in the bank. So like your test won't be doing anything at that point, which I thought was like a good insight. So I think like one of the biggest things that I've learned from like, all right, I've seen there are so many ducks over here from everybody just getting wrecked by that boat.
You ruined my duck train, Carter. Here, let's team up. Let's get these together.
Like by the canoe. Dang it. But like I think just like doing stuff though, like whether it's like perfect or not perfect, if it's like good enough, especially early in that stage, is like you're getting in the habit though of like winning and getting things across the line as a team. And that's something that like, whether this was the right choice or that was the right choice, A, B, C, or D, like your team is stronger now because they did something than they were before. And so when the right option does come along, you guys will be ready to execute on it. It's kind of my experience with like those smaller teams.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely something to that, like success, getting reps on success and kind of winning as a team. Like we've kind of been experimenting with something that the Basecamp team does. They wrote a book about it called Shake Up. And
how's that been going for you guys? Do you want to describe what that is actually? Because like that's something that our designers talked to us about a little bit. We haven't done it yet though. I'm really interested.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I've kind of heard it I've read it that like there's agile, like uppercase A agile, and then there's agile like lowercase a. And like I'd say in a lot of ways there's a lot of similar kind of meetings and artifacts to it, but it's definitely less meeting and structure heavy. It's really not a dogmatic approach, and that's really what we're kind of after is how do we make this system work for us. So rather than doing just the typical 2-week sprint after sprint after sprint, we kind of pivoted to what they suggested first was a 6-week cycle. So kind of bet on something even bigger, right? Something that's big and meaningful, and then take a 2-week cool down between. And a cool down's not like literally time off, right? It's really meant to be, I mean, it can be tech debt, it can be experimentation on like things you want to vet out before committing to them. There's a lot of things you can do with cool down. It's meant to be self-directed by the team. We found 6 weeks like worked well for us for a while, but we've kind of been experimenting more recently with a 3-week cycle and a 1-week cool down. So really just kind of chopping that larger block into two chunks. But I guess I'm not answering your question well.
I think that's super interesting though. I like that. Continue.
Rather than like a typical waterfall or kind of a backlog that you're picking from and prioritizing, it's really about every time you start one of these cycles, you're kind of betting anew on what is the next most important increment you can build, and trying to really distill that to what is the most important piece that you can ship first, right? And that's kind of where I come in with the winning together. Is it's really about what can we ship right now that is the most immediate value to us or the most important thing to get in place for future bets, and can we kind of bet on that with a time frame in mind, where that's like, hey, this first week of our cycle, we really want to get this piece done and ready to go, so that we have a quick win in our cycle, and then the rest of our cycle feels like we have some momentum or like we've actually accomplished something meaningful in that amount of time. So the big difference, other than a few of those, is the need for shaping, like a regular, constant shaping. That the things you are betting on aren't always really well-defined work. You know, like oftentimes you're saying, we want this outcome, but there's no high fidelity design or pixel perfect idea of how you're going to achieve that outcome. You work with the engineer, you work with the UX designer to really storyboard or kind of understand, like, how do we get this outcome that we're trying to get with this product, and what's the first thing that needs to fall into place to get there. And you're constantly shaping and having those discussions around kind of refining that idea into a set of features.
That's cool. It's like, yeah, very specific take on, like, it's like has some of the core tenets of like agile, of like iterative approach. Let's focus on getting value out, but it sounds like a lot less overhead. It sounds like a lot more pragmatic, especially on like smaller teams where it's like you have a little bit more flexibility with what you deliver.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. Who does the designs? Like, do you do the designs? Do you guys like engineers like design it yourself? Do you guys have a designer?
Yeah. So when I first joined the team, obviously we had Mike, who I've shouted out already, and then Chris had joined the team after him, and he is a full-time engineer here and still with us. And anyway, I kind of picked their brain about like what is the most valuable incremental hire that we can bring in right now for you guys, and it was, you know, is it another engineer or is it a UX designer? And it was pretty resounding that we needed a UX person. So kind of went to my network and tried to find the right person to come in and help us with that. And so we brought on a UX designer who we really liked. He's maybe a little young in his career, but he's done a great job. He's got some really great design chops, and he's really given our app some personality and life that it wouldn't have had otherwise. So yeah, UX designer is pretty crucial to a lot of that shaping that we do and a lot of that iterative design. He's constantly doing probably higher fidelity mockups than he needs to do, but he works quickly in Figma and is constantly churning out kind of iterations on the design to kind of help us get an idea of what we need to build. So he's been super helpful on the development of what we've built so far.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very mature decision for such a small early company. Because speaking from my limited experience, I feel like the designers come in a little too late in the process, and then you're kind of playing catch up. So that's pretty cool. Sort of related to what y'all were talking about just there. I'm curious, what the actual meetings, like, what do you have stand-ups, do you have retros, do you have, like, what does it actually look like in practice? I mean, I understand conceptually what y'all are talking about, but
yeah, so I guess our equivalents, like in some ways, like we do a betting table meeting once per cycle, where that is kind of the selection process. Anyone can put in bets. Typically they are more coming from the business side, so co-founder and myself, but obviously we're open to bets from engineering side as well. And that's really just kind of a unscoped piece of work, like we need to focus on this or this outcome, and that could be performance, that could be security, that could be a feature set that we are really looking to add. So we have a betting table meeting where all stakeholders are able to meet there and kind of just say, this is what I think is most important, here's the trade-offs, and really just weigh in on where we spend our dollars. So kind of similar to deciding in your Scrum meeting just what you're going to work on for that sprint. So that's the case. We've tried to implement a retro. I to be honest, I can't completely remember if ShapeUp prescribes one, but we feel like it's pretty essential, especially when you're doing longer cycles, to be able to look back at what could we have done better. And that's actually a big reason we have been kind of trying out the shorter cycle, is we felt like 6 weeks was sometimes hiding dysfunction, in the sense of it's been so long that we've been working on this chunk of work. Do we even remember what we aren't doing well? So,
Right.
And that's a recent iteration or evolution of what we've been implementing. So there's those things. Within the cooldown, again, I said, like, it's kind of meant to be engineer directed of what they believe is most important in that cooldown. So typically we'll do some sort of sync up. So kind of an equivalent to a stand up, but maybe a little less of a return and report type thing. It really is a little more in depth around, like, here's what I want to be working on in this cooldown, and here's what I'm going to commit to. And then mid-cycle, we've tried to just do cycle sync ups, where it's just really get in front of the team a couple times a week and say, here's what I'm working on, here's what I'm stuck on, here's what I could use some help on. Kind of just sync with each other on how the cycle is going. And largely we use the betting table or what we've bet on as kind of the agenda for that meeting, saying, here's what we committed to, how far along is this? And a big piece of those bets is how long you want them to take. Like, how much time, dev time, is it worth to the business? So we can easily say, hey, this was a tiny bet. We wanted to fix this one thing, but it's really only worth 1 day of work to us. So if it's going to go beyond that, like, that's a discussion to be had, because otherwise, like, it's starting to eat into more important or higher priority work. So yeah, those cycle syncs are important. And actually, I was recently out of town, and I forgot to put them on the calendar, and I felt the difference of not having those cycle sync ups. And I think a big piece of that is we are a hybrid team, and I'm sure a lot of engineering teams can relate to this nowadays, whether they're fully remote or hybrid. You don't want to have meetings just to have meetings. I think that's one of the great outcomes of kind of the distributed work team, but there's also a big need to communicate better. If you're not constantly sitting next to somebody who's doing work with you or collaborating with you, being able to kind of have some structured time on your calendar on a regular basis is pretty important, I think. So
Yeah.
I deliberately chose to not steal my duckling train back from you.
nice.
That's fine. I'm sorry I keep taking y'all's ducks too. I don't see until
It's
last
all about
second.
getting it back. Our duck house is getting pretty decked out. I don't know if you guys have looked at it recently.
How do you win this game? Do you get like a Scrooge McDuck style vault where you
I
can
hope
dive
that-
into points?
I hope
We
that's
just got a
it. Like
duck
that
playground.
whole carousel up here with a slide and a swing set.
I feel like they should have called this game Abducted.
Oh my
Because we
goodness.
take-
That's gold.
That's great. Oh man. That's interesting. I was going to ask you what the communication process kind of looks like on a smaller team, but like you kind of gone over that. I was planning on like having this be like a shape up themed kind of.
Yeah,
call.
I'm plugging shape up, and
I'm
I'll say
loving
this.
this. I think it's highly relevant. I would describe it as like a bleeding edge process, maybe. Like it's definitely.
Yeah. And I think there's still plenty of shortcomings that we're finding out, like plenty of friction points. There's no perfect system that's going to make product development easy. Like I think it's inherently a challenging problem. Otherwise, we wouldn't have jobs. But yeah, I think the big takeaway that I got from the whole shape up thing was really just don't be dogmatic. Like do things that are practical and are going to work for your team. And as soon as they stop serving you, like they are in the way of that progress. And so whether that's sprint or shape up or something else, like throw out the like meaningless meetings or throw out some of those things, but you can add stuff in if you need it, right? Like if those cycle syncs aren't long enough or if stand up is truly helpful, like do it. Just find what works for your team and try and do it. And I think that's a work in progress still for us. Like I think there's still plenty of improvement to be done there.
I think that's where having like those retro calls or whatever, like you would want to call it in like a shape up style, if it's the same as like, regardless of like what framework you do, I think having a meeting or a time for us to all just like connect and reflect on like what we did and how we do it differently. If you do that, whether doing shape up, agile, waterfall, I don't care. Like your team will eventually grow and unify on the process that works best for them. I feel like.
Yeah,
for
sure.
I like what you're saying about being fairly like dogmatic about like what you do and don't do, and just like I think one of the weaknesses of kind of agile is like with a lot of the overhead of like the meetings, they're called ceremonies, right? And it gets to where you could have them be like rituals or ceremonies where you're just like not even thinking about it, you're just going on autopilot with them. Stand up is very like prone to that a lot of the times, and then even like sprint planning can be that way. And like I love like I try to remind everyone like every now and then of like, okay, look at stand up. Are you actually glad you have these 15 minutes a day to like help you get your work done, or is it like not useful? I believe in the concept, especially remote, of like let's have a time to touch base with each other, but like are we talking about the right things? Are we using this conversation effectively, or is it just like a 15-minute ritual that we do when we get run over by boats? And so I think having like a framework of a little bit less meetings definitely it gets you more in a mindset. I think. Did we just win? Okay, no, we have a school now though.
Another house.
All these other ducks are just living in cardboard boxes compared to us. But I think I lost my train of thought because I lost my train of ducklings.
Nice.
Well, I can.
The more meeting heavy ones will like if you have a lower meeting framework, I think that keeps you in a mindset that's very critical at the early stage of like, what is the most important thing for us to actually be doing right now, as opposed to what does Jira say is the most important thing for us to be doing right now.
Yeah. Well, and I'd say that's one of the major shortcomings we've been running into is prioritization, right? Like we bet on things that are important to us, but then within those bets, what's the most important piece of work? And I think that's something we still haven't quite solved, because I think oftentimes we will take some of those quick wins, or we'll get into a piece of work that then ends up bumping something that some of us felt was more important. And I think that's still something that we're trying to solve a little bit. We've been using the Basecamp tool for some of our, I guess, like ticketing or kind of our project management tool. But has a few shortcomings that maybe some of the other bigger players have worked out.
Do you still use contractors, or do you still have contractors on the team?
So just the one, Mike, again, shout out to him.
Founding engineer, contractor.
But yeah, he's our only contractor right now. It's been a topic of conversation, right? Because it's definitely like an idea of like, can we kind of beef up our bandwidth in terms of what we can deliver? Is that the quick way to do it? And there are plenty of contractors or dev shops kind of trying to peddle their wares our way, which I think maybe in a future state would be more amenable to us. I just think that at an early stage, you want to really know what's going on in your code base. Everything that's in there, you're going to have to maintain, and so I think we've been resistant to it purely for kind of protective reasons, like a mother duck, to bring it full circle. But like we really just want to make sure that what's getting put into our code base is quality and that we can maintain it and we understand what's going on there. It's definitely a conversation that gets brought up often, because I think hiring engineers, full-time engineers, especially as a startup, can be a huge challenge, as we kind of touched on earlier, where not everyone wants to, take that risk. They'd rather kind of go vest in peace at, one of the FANG companies or something like that. And that's totally fine and respectable, but we're kind of looking for those people who want to come take a chance with us and really have a bigger or outsized impact than they could have at one of those types of companies.
I agree with that. I think there's a lot of pros and cons of contractors. I don't know if this duck that's trying to steal all of my ducklings right here is on our team or not. No, he is not. He's an evil duck. I think, I would agree with that. We started leaning into contractors more after like a year or so, I think, or a couple of years. But I think that in order, especially with like depending on like the type of contractors that you have, if they're like overseas or if they're like local, those are two very different kinds as well. But especially with ones that are like overseas and need to be able to operate autonomously at like different time zones and stuff, like there's an upfront cost that your engineering team has to pay to be able to support them and like get them the kind of work that they excel with and make sure it's clear and very direct. And when you're super early, like you oftentimes don't have that clarity. Like a lot of times with Drew, like when Drew joined pretty early, I'd have to say like, Drew, you know how to like solve problems, like you understand the problem, like come up with a solution and go figure it out. And that's a lot harder to do with somebody who's not necessarily like as involved with the company. Maybe that's not fair though. Maybe it depends. I don't know. What's your take on that? Saying that as like you guys have had like one of your founding engineers be a contractor, so like
I think he's a shining example, and maybe an exception, at least in my experience, in that he is has been with us for the long term and hasn't kind of turned tail or turned up his nose to rolling up his sleeves on some of maybe the less fun work to do. He's been very much a key part of our team. So I think with him, I've had a very positive experience, but I think we also, are guarded, I guess, against the bad experiences that certain members of our team or even myself have had with kind of outside contractors, just not really caring about quality or the collaboration aspect of building a good product. So, and I think that's maybe the other piece of it is early on, there is so much trial and error that you might be telling them to build something and they build it exactly how you explained it, but that's not actually how it should have been built. And there, had you had a little more of some give and take or push and pull on how that should have worked or the best outcome, and they were truly bought into the company and the success of the company, then you might have developed something better rather than kind of made a hot mess.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. And I'm glad that there's like a good example of like, because like we have contractors and they're great and like they work really well. There's definitely like been like we have to like, well, I don't know, they've been here long enough. Drew, you have a couple of contractors on your team where it's like they work as effectively as like full-time employees. A lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think the only like true limitation, and I've even communicated this to our contractor early on, was just how it's difficult to build a team around one, because it's like, why would people take a chance joining a company that one of the main engineers hasn't taken a chance to join that company, right? Like, and that kind of posed a challenge, and he recognized that, and so it's definitely been huge for us to get some full-time engineers here to really help get some buy-in, or kind of just be a more compelling case to join us, right? Like we aren't just a temporary thing that's going to disappear. And I mean, that's kind of the unspoken existential risk of a startup, is like, am I going to have a job in a month? And I think I have so much confidence in the team we have that I don't have that fear. But I think people from an outside perspective, and when I'm kind of having those exploration calls with engineers, and even kind of in the ecosystem we're dealing with right now, where even some of the best companies in the world, Stripe and Twitter, are laying off massive cohorts of their team. Like, I can understand why there is some fear around that job security and things like that. So I definitely don't discredit people. I think it would be unwise or naive of them not to at least consider that. But I hope that when they meet the team and kind of catch the vision of what we're doing here, they can understand just how cool of an opportunity it can be to be part of a small team like this.
Yeah, I think that's a really good insight, because man, there's a lot of things I want to ask you more questions on that. We're coming up on time here. We got a couple minutes left. Oh, perfect. This will make the great screenshot. I was trying to get a screenshot of our awesome duck house, because this is coming together really nicely. It's gotten so big. So shout out to everybody on the stream that's been helping us with the duck house here, for the record. I'm going to post these on my Twitter, probably, if Twitter's still a thing. But I guess 2 questions. 1, are you guys hiring? And 2, if you guys are hiring, what would make me a good candidate, or what can I do to make myself a good candidate as a 100X engineer, of course, to work at a company like Blackthorn?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think we're always opportunistically hiring. Like, if you're a good engineer, or even other roles that you really feel like you can come contribute and buy into, like, what we're trying to do here, we want to talk to you. And that kind of spans a lot of skill sets or skill levels. I think kind of maybe the minimum of what we're looking for at this stage is a full stack engineer, someone who can take product ideas and specifications from ideation all the way to delivery, and so that's kind of maybe our minimum qualification of what we would take now. I think that's not to say that junior engineers or early stage engineers, we would love to take you on at a certain point. We just may not have kind of the mentor or bandwidth to really help you develop at this stage, but we hope to get there. So that's kind of the one, is full stack. Yes, we are hiring. The other, I think, that you can do to stand out to early stage startups is, obviously, your skills matter. We want you to be able to come in and contribute in a meaningful way. But beyond skills of just, coding and building skills, like, your personality matters too, your attitude towards the work, and your interest in being part of a startup. Like, half of the battle of being a founder or being on a founding team is like getting people to come join in the vision of what you really buying into the vision. So I think it's cool that you call this podcast 100X Engineers, because, I mean, obviously, I'm guessing that's a play off of, like, the 10X, right? 10X engineer is kind of the thing that everyone's looking for. And I think the way I see it is, like, 10X engineer or 100X engineer isn't doing 10X the work of another engineer. That's not what it's about. You're not shipping 10 times the code. It's about kind of lifting those around you too. Like, can you enable the team to ship 100X or 10X of what they could have? And I think by, being easy to work with, and also just leveling up everyone around you, that's how you become the true multiplier on the team. And that's super helpful at a startup. When you have limited resources and limited people, if you can be that multiplier, that's a huge win. That would be like a pot of gold for us. So
very cool. That's I normally ask people to say something profound and say something answer this question. You did both of those things. So
cool.
I also hear what you're saying about being at an early stage startup with a lot of the ambiguity. You're not really set up for success if you're super early in your career. It's like once you get a little bit more of a foundation there, then you can start implementing programs and mentorship and things like that. But yeah, it's going so fast that it's risky for both people in that regard. So we got some information here. I will show this again at the end. Let's see. Nope, that's not it. But this is a relevant meme. We didn't go over since there's a duck on there. That's not the one though. Here we are. Blackthorn Software, based out of Salt Lake City. Are you guys remote in office?
We're in Lehigh. We are a hybrid team. We like to have the team come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. However, we do have a fully remote employee out of California. So we're open to it for the right person. But yeah, we kind of value that face-to-face collaboration when we can get it. Not a hard and fast rule, but hybrid is kind of what we've settled in on for now.
Very cool. Yeah, based out of Lehigh, Utah. I like that you guys include salary bands with your positions. That's very cool. I know
that's kind of a wide range there. But as I said, we are open to kind of a wide range of skill levels. Is kind of that full stack as a minimum.
Drew, anything else you want to add before we wrap up here?
Oh, that was really awesome. Very profound indeed.
We'll show this again right before we roll our outro credits, though. Rob, thank you so much for taking the time to come and join us. It's been an utter pleasure chatting with you. I've learned stuff. Hopefully our 2.4 million viewers have also learned stuff. We have laughed together. We've cried together. We've built duck houses together. And with that, hopefully we'll chat with you again here soon.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Definitely give an applause to Rob. And away with you to the backstage. That makes it sound so bitter when I make people go back there. Actually, I just love the power of bring them back and send them away
to the void. Yeah, I've still been collecting ducks. That was fun.
I noticed actually. I need to take it. I need to take another. Holy cow! We've got okay. Let me share the screen one more time. We've got this whole thing over here. At what point are we? We've got a fit between our house and this dude's house.
Yeah, it's intense.
Check that out. We got a little rock circle thing here.
You see the duck statue? We have a golden duck statue.
Golden duck statue.
It's right there. Yeah, top right.
We got a school for our little ducklings. We got a schoolyard. Do we got anything over here? Oh, we have stuff over here too. I didn't even realize this. We got a fence on this side that goes up to our neighbor's poultry duck house as well. Okay, how does this work? Should I say poultry duck house? How does this work if they start building their house and it starts getting pimped out like ours? Is it just going to overlap with our stuff?
That's when the war starts. That's when we start fighting.
Into duckwars.io. That's the game I'm going to be making over Thanksgiving break. That's what it will be. Well, let's see. Follow-up topics. Trick question. Do you know when the next episode is?
I don't, because I don't think we're going to have an episode over Thanksgiving, so it might be a while.
That was the trick. So our next episode is going to be the second week of December 13th. Happy birthday, Mark Hesterman, my father. I will still be here on the stream, though, even though it's my dad's birthday. And we're only going to do one stream this month, and then we're going to do one stream next month as well, unless y'all really want to, jump off your Thanksgiving break to come and watch us play a game or something. I don't know. At me on Twitter and we can talk about it. Same goes for Christmas. I think any other announcements? I think that's it. I can close the duck game out here. Should I do I said I'd show the slide one more time. So we're going to show this. If you haven't screenshotted this and you're interested, Rob is super cool. If you didn't pick that up already, I would love to work for Rob. I'd love to work
me too.
with him. Yeah, he's super cool. Really interesting product that they're working on. So definitely hit him up on LinkedIn or go to the website here and follow up with them if you're interested in this. Even if you're on my team, if you're looking for another job and you told me you're going to go and work with Rob, I would happily endorse that. Don't tell my bosses or my people that I work with that I said that.
Carter, I have some news.
Oh, no, Drew, don't call my bluff. Just kidding. I'm happy for anybody that gets a good job. Okay, are we good to do the streamer voice sign off thing?
Yeah, go for it.
You don't want to do it?
No.
Yo, this is Hesto2 coming at you with the latest episode of 100x Engineering. Don't forget to smash the like and subscribe button or whatever it is on LinkedIn or Twitch. Subscribe us and ring the bell, and we'll be doing a charity give. No, I don't know. We don't have money or funding to do that. That's what they all say, though, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, we will roll the credits now.